Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin, powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm Robert, your host, Robert O'Haver. With me today is Caleb McKelvin. Caleb, how's it going?
Doing great, Robert, man. Excited for another awesome show. If you are a regular listener, we definitely appreciate you joining us again today. If this is your first time, boy, do we have an awesome show for you. You picked a great time to listen in.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. So we're very excited. I'm excited to learn about today's show because, we're going to be talking about AdWords and retargeting, of course, which is not necessarily where my expertise is at. So I got a lot to learn today.
Yeah, so if it's your first time tuning into the show, we talk every week. We talk digital marketing. We talk SEO, search engine optimization, conversion optimization, social media, anything. You name it, as long as it's digital, we talk about it. We talk about tools and hosts, and we even have owners of different tools and platforms out there come on the show and talk about, things that can make you successful online.
Yep.
And we are available. You can listen to us on iTunes, Sprecher. We are on soon on April 1st, I believe. We're going to be on iHeartRadio,
which
is pretty huge. And those of you that are not on our website and you're listening to us on SoundCloud or something like that, you can go to searchtalklive.com. I recommend that you sign up for the newsletter there because you can get up-to-date information on who's going to be on the show. And who knows? We have special guests. Just like last week, we had a special guest gave away his book exclusively to our listeners, which is huge.
Yes.
The Art of SEO, which is one of the biggest books out there in the market.
I even took advantage of that and got my free copy and reading it all over again. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
And I think you can still get your copy if you go listen to last week's episode. You can probably get your copy and get the information off that recording. You can listen to past shows on our website, and anything that you can imagine we've talked about. We've had some really large or big name guests on the show that are in the digital marketing space.
Yep.
And really will get you informed and give you insight into the market and how to be an expert in the field that you're in. So anyway, without further ado, our guest today is an AdWords expert, a CEO and president of RoaR, which is an internet marketing company, Matt Weber. Matt, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic and really excited to be here.
Yeah. No pressure of the last name Weber, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
It's destiny.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you joining us in studio here, Mike. We actually have an in-studio guest. Matt, I'm sorry. Matt Weber. I got Mike on my name for some reason. But Matt, thanks for joining us. If you don't mind kind of introducing yourself, who you are, kind of your background, because I know you've been in the industry for a long time. If you could introduce yourself and kind of what you've been through, what you're doing now, and let everybody know who you are.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here. I'm president and CEO of RoaR Internet Marketing, and we're a digital shop just outside of Orlando in Altamont Springs. And we do search engine marketing. We manage about over $500,000 of other people's money in AdWords. But I think what I'm excited to share with you today is I also travel the country and teach people and other agencies about AdWords. And I go all over the U.S. and North America to do that. I've been in digital marketing for about 10 years now. But before that, I grew up in the television business. And if you think about the early days of television, it was based on numbers. It was based on analytics. We just called them ratings at that time.
Right.
So I grew up in the rating system of television and was able to transition that knowledge over to the digital side and use that to make people more successful with their digital marketing.
Yeah. No, that had to be, a pretty smooth transition. Did you see an opportunity there? Like, everything's going digital. I can transfer all these skills and everything I learned over to that industry as well.
Yeah, the only difference is the speed.
Yeah.
Because in television, you could have fallen asleep for 10 years, and when you woke up, you could have been just as accomplished as you were 10 years before. In this business, in digital marketing, you fall asleep for 2 days, and all of a sudden you wake up and someone says, hey, by the way, they took away the side ads on Google search engine results pages. So what?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's one of the great things about the industry, I think. You have to stay on top of what you're doing, continually learn. There's no stopping. If you stop, like you said, you fall behind. And that's one of the great things I love about the industry.
Yeah, the best part about teaching is when I'm standing in front of a room of 40 or 50 people, undoubtedly every class somebody brings me a situation that I'd absolutely never heard of.
Right.
And when Google rolls out changes in AdWords, they don't just flick a button and everybody sees the same changes.
Yeah.
Right.
They roll out over time. So it's not uncommon to be in front of 50 people and someone will say, well, what does this button do? And you're like, never seen it before.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Well, I mean, let's kind of start there. What is your viewpoint of, the latest happenings in ads as far as taking the side ads off? Kind of what's your viewpoint on it? What do you think about those?
Super significant change. And across the board in the accounts that we manage, we're seeing a 17% increase in cost per click from the day that those side ads were taken away.
Yeah, that's kind of a given. I knew that was going to happen.
If you think about it, they had to do it, though.
Yeah.
The side ads weren't productive for most clients on that. So then you've got clients who aren't getting value out of their AdWords account. So I say take a look at Google as if they were Publix. And imagine for a minute that Publix sold soda really well when it was at the end cap at the end of the aisle.
Right.
But it didn't sell when it was in the aisle. And if that went on for a certain amount of time, Publix would eventually come to the conclusion, all right, let's put all the soda on the end cap. Let's stop putting it in the aisle. And by that, we're going to make our soda manufacturers, our distributors happier because now they're selling, whereas they weren't before. And then they've created a premium for that limited space. And so whatever incentives flow through to get to that end cap space is going to increase or magnify. So that's a benefit for Publix.
Yeah.
So it's a win for Publix because they get more incentives. It's a win for the sodas because now they're in a spot that actually sells.
Yep.
Same thing happening on AdWords right now. The side ads weren't really productive. The top ads were. So they strip away those side ads. Now we've got less inventory, but it's less of a more productive inventory.
Right.
So in general, advertisers should be somewhat pleased with the change. And I think it absolutely makes AdWords accounts a little bit easier, but maybe more expensive to manage.
Right.
Yeah, it's more of a fight to be in that top 4 spot. Yeah.
Right. But if you get in there, you should get results.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And there's less of a distraction with that left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of people that used to use those side ads to either increase their organic click-through, looking for branding of that. Now that technique is pretty much gone.
Yeah. Very cool.
One thing I wanted to test, and I was reading an article on this the other day, and it kind of goes in with SEO, with pay-per-click ads. Now, when you have a high conversion rate and you have a high click-through rate on a paid ad, a text ad, I'm talking, in search, I wonder, and if your quality score is really high and everything is rounded there, what stops you from using those titles? And obviously they're a lot shorter than what you would use as a title tag, but and that's descriptions and titles for an ad. If it's getting a really good click-through rate and everything, why wouldn't you want to use that for your website?
And
yeah,
organic.
I think you would.
Yeah.
I think you would. You really do. In fact, I say to people, AdWords really should become your laboratory
Exactly.
for your organic strategy. And you know how hard it is to move organically now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So before you invest the time, the money, the effort to try to move organically, you should know with 100% confidence that that's a productive phrase for you. AdWords gives you that ability. So think of it like drilling for oil, right? In AdWords, you're going to drill a bunch of different wells.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to spit out, some of them not. Before you invest the money into digging deeper, go for the ones that have the return on it.
Yeah. I mean, you have the ability to test what works.
Yeah.
So you have that tool right there before you even think about going with organic.
Yeah, think of the nimbleness you have with AdWords that you just don't have with organic. I mean, there's a chance that you could do everything correctly with organic in a hyper-competitive phrase and still knock off the number one guy.
Yeah.
When you do everything well in AdWords, you are going to get that top position sooner or later.
Yeah.
So you can be more nimble. You can find out what's profitable, what's not profitable. And then also don't forget to take a look at your paid and organic report, which is under the Dimensions tab. And a lot of people think that paid cannibalizes organic and vice versa. But it's really true that when they work together is when they work best. So people see the credibility of the organic listing, but often that's not promotionally oriented language in the snippet.
Yeah.
Whereas the ad has the promotionally oriented language in the snippet. So put the two together, and that's when you get your best results.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be, because you're getting your title tag and your meta description, or part of it anyway.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And, obviously if you're getting a high quality score from Google AdWords, I know they're separate, but you're getting a good quality score. So that means maybe search we'll get the same kind of results as far as quality of the snippets.
Yep, very much so.
Absolutely.
And the phrases, obviously.
If you're just tuning in, you're obviously listening to Search Talk Live with hosts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin. We have our special guest today, Matt Weber from RoaR Internet Marketing. He is an expert in AdWords and retargeting. So if you want to call on in with your questions, you can do so at 855-722-0006. That is 855-722-0006. And hit option 1. You'll be directed over to our main man, Dave, who's working behind the scenes over here. We always appreciate Dave and all the work that he does. We are sponsored by Robert Palmer and the Robert Palmer family of companies. We really appreciate all they do for the show. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com and check out everything they have to offer. I highly advise that you do so. But today we are talking with Matt Weber, expert in AdWords and retargeting. Now, Matt, I saw a statistic. Actually, I was doing some research for this show that only 2% of users who visit your site for the first time actually convert. Is that accurate? Is that kind of how we feel?
Yeah, you'll see different pieces of research out there that say that number is anywhere as low as 0.5%. If you look at a B2B website, for example, nationally, as high as 3%. But yeah, I've seen that number as well, the 2. But I think a lot of the people that I come in contact with are actually experiencing something much lower than 2.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're not retargeting, you're doing something wrong, right?
Yeah, right. Because you've got these people who got there for some reason, right? They had some level of interest. So why don't we spend a little bit of money trying to go back and talk to them and trying to push them over the finish line, as opposed to the time, energy, and effort it takes to find someone who hasn't been associated with our brand or our website yet and trying to get them in. It's really about trying to squeeze as much juice as you can out of the oranges you already have than it is about trying to find more oranges to put on the counter.
Right.
Absolutely. And those of you that do not, and there's probably not a listener out there that's listening to this show doesn't know what retargeting is, but I do want to explain it to you. Basically, what it is when someone visits your site, you're given a piece of code by Google AdWords called the retargeting pixel. You put it on your site, and then when a visitor visits your site and if they do not convert, it depends on if you set up the rules and everything. But if they don't convert and they leave your site, that pixel is downloaded on your computer as a cookie. And what that is, it's basically a file that says, they visited this site. So now that ads, if you're in that network and you're visiting other sites, those ads are going to show up for that site that you were visiting. And then that's designed to bring that client back or that customer back to your site to create a conversion. And there's several rules that you can set up and advanced retargeting that you can do you can even target a specific product or page that they were on or service or whatever it may be. You can set up rules to do that. So that being said, Matt, did I explain that well?
Yeah, super job. The only thing I would add to that is if you can at all set up your retargeting through Google Analytics,
right, you
save that step of having to worry about another piece of code on that. The other advantage of setting up your retargeting through Analytics is you've got a whole host of filters and qualifications that you can use that you can't do in AdWords. So let's say you wanted to target just people who came from organic search and just people who were new visitors and just people whose last visit was only, less than 7 days ago. You can do all that through Google Analytics. Mm-hmm. You can't do that in AdWords. So you've really got a lot more tools and a lot more power when you set up your audience in retargeting and in analytics.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk turkey now. Let's get into the, retargeting and what are best practices in setting that up.
One key that I think, there's 2 keys that I think I see most people do incorrectly. You got 2 really important decisions to make when you set up a retargeting campaign. The one is, how long are you going to keep people in that audience? You've had the experience where you've seen an ad long after you bought the product and you're like, come on, I bought this thing a week ago. What's going on?
Yeah.
So when you set up your audience, you determine how long should someone stay in that. If you're selling a car, it takes somewhere between 65 and 70 days in America on average somebody to buy a car. You're going to keep somebody in that audience 65, 70 days.
Right.
You're selling pest control. Most people make that decision in a day, right? You got a bug crawling across the counter, you're going to get it taken care of. If you left that pest control audience in there for 70 days, they'd be pretty upset continually seeing ads after they've already made the decision. Then the second mistake when you set up the campaign itself is frequency capping. How often do you want someone to see this ad in a given day? And if you don't adjust that, and you've had that experience where it seems like, oh man, every place I travel on the internet, I'm seeing the same ad for the same company. And at some point, there's an aggravation factor that fits in, right? That's because you didn't cap the number of impressions that someone should have on that, because it can become an irritant.
Yeah.
And it's a really strong correlation between age and the receptivity to retargeting. Right. The older you are, the more likely you are to think that this is an intrusion of privacy, it's a pain in the butt. The younger you are, the more likely you are to describe retargeting as helpful, time efficient, productive. So big difference in age in there. So you got to really watch those two settings carefully.
I think some people might think and have the mindset, well, if I'm in front of them so often, I really don't care if I annoy them or not because you're building that brand recognition. But would there be kind of negative effects to where they don't want to work with that brand anymore? You know, they're annoying me, so I'm going to look for something else. But some might say, well, you know, it's kind of like you send out a piece of mail 1,000 times. They're eventually going to react to it. I mean, is there kind of a give and go with that?
It works both ways, because there can be a point where, you know, if people don't understand what retargeting is, they're going to be like, wow, this guy's advertising everywhere.
Yeah. And I've heard people say that.
He must have a huge budget.
Yeah,
right,
like
exactly.
he's on every website, you know, so they might get a little annoyed with it, or really annoyed with it. I mean, I get annoyed. I know what AdWords is and retargeting is, and I get annoyed with it sometimes. Like, come on, just leave me alone. I got it. So, I mean, you're going to annoy somebody, and I guess that could hurt your brand big time.
You know, it's no different than brick and mortar retail. I mean, you've been in a store where the minute you crossed over the threshold, somebody said, "Can I help you?
Yeah.
Can I help you?"
Yeah.
And you're like, you know, just looking. And 2 seconds later, they were back at you saying, "Can I help you?"
Right,
and you're
right.
like, just looking, dude.
Yeah.
And so it depends on where you are and what that product is that you're shopping for. If it's in your favorite store and you know you're going to buy, maybe it doesn't aggravate you as much. Yeah, so you do have to nuance it a little bit, but I'd rather start on the conservative side and err on the side of caution and not take people off.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is, back to the data at the early part of the broadcast, is we can see whether or not it's happening or not. And if it's not working as well as we want it to, let's adjust two of those pivotal settings.
Right. Is there an interest level? So say somebody made it to almost the final step of converting, and should you kind of hound them more and more often, or somebody that's just shown a little interest, you know, could you kind of shy away, or could you gauge it that way? Or, you know, is there certain levels that you need to attack more and kind of stay off more?
Right. Yeah. So look at people who put a product in a cart and then abandon. You know, they're just a breath away from the purchase. Those are people that I would target fairly aggressively, because they are just a small action away from completing that purchase. As opposed to if we were talking to a B2B client and you went to an engineering firm's website, and so that's a long sales cycle. You're just kind of thinking about what is the type of firm that you need. You don't want to be hitting those people up 8 times a day for 30 days on that, because of the nature of that sales cycle.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, depending how, you could get, depending on what part of the funnel they're in, like if he was talking about when you're just about to check out, that's a whole different message than what you would, you know, if they were looking at a product. There's all kinds of techniques you can use to bring them back. Like if you're going real granular with it, you can actually, like, say they were looking at a product. And I tell you, Amazon's really good at this.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at a particular product and you're about to check out, you know, you're coming back to them with that retargeting pixel that they were just about to check out, and you say, "Here's this product. Hey, maybe here's a discount, or get it today only for 20% off or something."
I think that companies now have to embrace what I call save a bullet pricing.
Yeah.
When you go to retailers and you put that product in the cart and you don't buy it, and the next thing you know, either you're seeing a 5% promo code, it's not like they said, "Oh crap, I'm going to lose 5% of margin on this, Robert." When they were setting out their pricing strategy, they said, "We can't lead with our best price because we know we got to scrape X amount off through retargeting." So that idea of save a bullet pricing, or save a bullet in your offer, is going to come key to people as they conceptualize their internet strategy. You can't lead with the ace when you're playing on the internet now.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. Now, I mean, let's talk about the audience for a minute, because if you're targeting the wrong audience, obviously your conversions are going to be low. I mean, you're just going to get in a whole world of mess. So when you're hitting that retargeting, how should you go about looking at your audience and kind of separating to these are the people I need to retarget with this, this, and this? How do you really need to break down your audience and analyze what you need to be retargeting, who you can leave off, and kind of that area?
Look backwards into your analytics for your conversion history. So you want to reverse engineer it a little bit, because everybody gets people that they don't want to their website, right? I mean, just people trip over it for the wrong reasons. So if you're retargeting everybody that visited a page, you're retargeting unqualified people and qualified people. So look back in your analytics and examine your conversions by gender, by age, by interest. And then when you set up your retargeting, you can layer. So my ad group targeting is going to be this retargeting audience, and then I'm going to click the red button that says add additional targeting, and then I'm going to qualify by age, because I probably don't want 0 to 18s, and I probably don't want 55 and up.
Right.
And if you've got some other data that supports that men are more likely to do it than women, or vice versa, let's add that as an additional layer as well. You want to get it down to as finely tuned as you can, and your analytics really holds a good treasure trove of information of what to use in that.
Yeah. As far as lookalike audience, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I mean, how can somebody best utilize kind of that concept when they're doing advertising and retargeting?
Our experience so far hasn't been dramatically great with lookalike audience so far, and as you know, it's a relatively new functionality in AdWords. However, if you're a pest control company and you've got an audience set up of people that visited the pest control treatment page, and you have the ability in AdWords to say, I'm going to do a lookalike of that audience, you're kind of presuming that the people who look like that are people who went to other pest control treatment pages. So it may be the most direct route we have to get to our competitors' audiences in some cases. But that it isn't a one-to-one comparison of, okay, you're a pest control page, therefore we're going to find other people on a pest control page. They're looking at demographic characteristics, usage characteristics, et cetera. But that's how that can be used. And I think it's worth experimenting on. Yeah. But here's where bid strategy comes in. I'm not going to pay as much for those people as I am the people that I know had footprints on my website on that. So I'm going to bid lower. And the nice thing about the characteristics of them being a lookalike audience is I really don't care where I find them. So I don't want to pay for premium inventory like the New York Times or ESPN. Heck, wherever I find them, whether it's on a game, an app, a dating website, what matters to me is who they are, not where they are in that instance. So keep a very conservative bid strategy when you use that.
Yeah.
And you might want to run that as a separate campaign too, just so that you can break those off and
definitely
kind of measure those,
analyze them differently.
Yeah. Now, as far as bidding strategy goes, I think that's kind of where people might fall into some trouble on what they're doing. But how is it different when you're remarketing or retargeting than just setting up your standard AdWords campaign?
Yeah. You have to take into account the fact that you already have an investment into that audience. So let's just say in hypothetical numbers, you've used your average transaction value, your conversion rate of your website, and your conversion rate of your lead to sale. And you said, you know what, I've done that math and I feel pretty confident I can pay $6 a visitor. Well, if you pay $6 a visitor originally to get me and I didn't convert, and then you go out retargeting and you bid another $6 for me, that math isn't going to work for you.
Right.
So instead you got to say, all right, if I can afford $6 for that ultimate math to work out, I'm going to try to keep my search at maybe $5, and then I'm going to bid maybe $1 on my retargeting efforts. So it's the combined metrics that you have to use to calculate your ROI. Correct. And what some people do is they look at their retargeting separately, and they go, oh, well, I made money off of that. Well, in reality, you didn't, because you got a sunk cost that went into creating the audience. So you've got to use both of those holistically. The other thing I think is valuable in retargeting is I'm not a huge fan of all of the automated bid strategies on the search side, because I think if you're going to take the time to learn AdWords and if you're really going to take advantage of it, put it on manual.
I'm the same way.
Make the judgments yourself, right? Yeah. On the display side, though, there's so much inventory. Oh, yeah. There's so many variables. And although they didn't get the credit for it, Google was kind of out in front of programmatic buying. AdWords was doing programmatic buying before it became a buzz, hot, sexy word. And, what was it? Advertising, one of advertising's top words of the year in 2015.
Right.
Google was long into it. And that's what some of those bid strategies are that are available to you. So I'm going to flip on a couple of those automated bid strategies in the display network,
Right.
because you just do not have the time to run your finger down all those automatic placements and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to bid more for this one, not that one. Nobody has that much time. You got to use an automated bid strategy for that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Matt Weber. We're talking AdWords and retargeting. You want to call into the show, you can call and ask questions. The number's 855-722-0006, option 1. You can hit us up on Twitter at #SearchTalkLive if you have a question. Let's see what else.
Can I share an advertising retargeting story for you?
Sure.
Please do.
We have a client who's running ads on their website, through the DFP.
Yeah.
And so the client goes to their own website and sees a retargeting ad for a resort that they had just booked the previous day. And the ad said, get $200 off your reservation. So she sees the ad, clicks on it, sees the offer, calls them up and said, hey, I see you have an offer now for $200 off, every third night that you stay. And she called them up and got the offer on that. But she got the offer because she was retargeted on her own website because she was serving ads.
Wow. And, that's a rule that should be set up. If they converted, unless they called in, obviously you can't control that. But if they converted, you don't show them ads.
Yeah.
A lot of people make that mistake, too. They just keep showing and showing it.
Right. When you define your audience, you're absolutely right. When you define your audience, you got to define it as it's the people who visited this page and the people who visited this page, which would ideally be the thank you page or the confirmation page of that.
Yeah.
All right. And let's see, what was the other question I wanted to ask you? Oh, I have a really funny story to tell you on retargeting. I have a client, and he's been my client probably for 6 years now. He's a doctor, and he had a customer or a patient call in and yelling and complaining that he put a virus on his computer because he kept seeing our ads everywhere he went. The ads for the practice, and what happened was the guy got so fed up with the retargeting pixel that because he thought he had a virus on his computer, he threw his computer away and went and bought it.
Oh my gosh!
Needless to say, if he went back to the site, he got
right.
But the doctor or the people at the office couldn't explain to him why it was happening because they're not the advertiser. But it was quite funny.
Well, think of the DNA profile that the three of us are leaving, right? Because where is our profile being established from? It's the websites that we visit.
Yeah.
Being in the industry, we're visiting a lot of websites that are outside our normal consumer behavior kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're visiting some clients' websites because we're helping them out, and so somewhere there's a treasure trove of data on Robert, and they're trying to decode what his interests are, and they're going, I got no idea.
I have no idea. He's a man of many colors and all over the place. Who knows?
He's the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah, exactly. That's
where's my
funny.
beer? No.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
All right, let's see.
Yes.
What would be some? Oh, you guys.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go first, please.
No. Go ahead.
Where would you? Let's say. Let's talk about some advanced strategies.
Okay.
Where would you start? Let's say you have an e-commerce site. You have multiple products, tangible products. And, what would be a really good strategy for them to lead off with?
First thing I see in situations like that is people don't understand their high-margin products.
Right.
You got to understand the ROI when you make a sale. And most people get into AdWords and they jump in and they say, I'm going to try to bid on everything. So that's really mistake number one.
Yeah.
The technique number one is understand where your high ROI is. Second technique there is using Google shopping campaigns.
Right.
And so if you don't have a platform that enables you to hook up to your data feed and your Google merchant account, which it's hard to imagine one that doesn't anymore.
Right.
Get off that platform.
Right.
Shut it down and open up again on another platform. Mm-hmm. And then once you get that in, then you're going to look at organizing your product feed. So the way that the shopping campaign ads work, a little bit different than regular AdWords, is they look at the taxonomy or the organizational structure of your data feed. So if you're going to break it down into shoes, then you got to break it down into men's shoes, and then you got to break it down into men's tennis shoes, and then you got to break it down into men's tennis shoes wide, men's tennis shoes narrow, men's tennis shoes standard on that. Most people don't organize their data feed at that finite level anymore. They've got their categories are too broad.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't show up in the shopping campaign ads.
Or they're showing up for irrelevant stuff.
Or they're showing up for irrelevant stuff. Yeah. And, and think about how specific we are as searchers now. 5 years ago, if you were looking for a used car, you would have typed in, used cars, Maitland. Today, people are typing in 2006 Mazda GLC yellow 4-door with USB port.
Yeah.
The queries that have 6 words and more, 7 words and more are just skyrocketing.
Yeah.
So that forces you as an AdWords advertiser to really do a paradigm shift and really get down into the detail. Most people completely underestimate the amount of detail and substructure that has to happen in your AdWords account. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to leave the scent of the searcher's intent on everything that you do, from the keyword that you're bidding on to the ad that you write to the landing page. Everything has to have the scent of what they were trying to do. And the more you are directly aligned with what they're trying to achieve, the more likely you are to get to that conversion. So on that e-commerce platform, if you just land somebody who's looking for men's tennis shoes on a page that just has men's shoes on it,
right,
it's not going to work.
Nope.
You got to land them on a page that's about men's tennis shoes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing. It seems that users are much more direct and specific on what they want exactly. It seems that kind of search is growing. And so does that pose a difficulty in AdWords, or is that being that more specific make it a little easier to actually deliver what they're looking for?
It does make it easier if you're willing to contribute the time.
Yeah.
So there's a time issue here. In the very beginning, AdWords was a do-it-yourself tool for small businesses. And then what happened is a whole cottage industry built around it, right, with advanced functionality to do. And Google kind of said, well, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And they built it into the tool. And all of a sudden, the tool is fairly complex and fairly robust. But use all those tools to deliver exactly what the searcher's looking for. And AdWords is going to be really profitable. So think of AdWords just as a matchmaking service. That's all it is. The person who puts in a query over here is trying to tell you what they want. And over here on the AdWords side, you're trying to position yourself as a match for what they want. And AdWords is in the middle, trying to make sure that you get connected to the people who are offering exactly what you want. And the whole system of AdWords is set up to suppress results that aren't relevant and to elevate results that it deems is relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can block sites, keyword phrases, all that stuff, so that you can keep it as laser focused. And if you do keep it as laser focused as you possibly can, then you're going to make a profit. But I see time and time again where people just stuff ad groups and stuff like that. I mean, I know we're not talking about search now, but where they just stuff tons of keywords in an ad group and just say, run it.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And they think it's relevant, but it's not. I mean, you have to theme them out so that it all coincides together.
Well, the equivalent of that on the display network side is you've got these 5 elements that you can use to target, and you really want to layer them.
Yeah.
You see many people try to get into the display network, and they haven't layered them, so the audience is too broad. And then the other thing they don't do is, there's a negative keyword equivalent in the display network side, which is excluding websites, types of websites,
placements,
park domains, placements, etc. That's as important to your display network success as negative keywords is on the search side. So a lot of people look at this highly diluted click-through rate and they go, oh my gosh, I'm getting a 0.0005% click-through rate. It can't be impactful. The display network must be flawed. Well, it's not the display network that's flawed. It's just you're really trying to achieve too much. Right. It's too broad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one thing they announced at SMX, Google is working on when we're talking about display advertising with Google Shopping, they're talking about you'll be able to say, I'm looking for a 60-inch screen TV. And then once that comes up and you see it come across the shopping, then you'll say, okay, I want to buy the one from Best Buy. And then it goes right to the checkout.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
You buy it from the search engine results page.
Yeah.
That is definitely coming in 2016. And let's go one step even further. Now you do that same search, but you speak it on your phone. And then you look at the results and you say, buy, and you say it. You never touch the button. Right. Now, that's coming.
Yeah.
And that's not far away. And that's a little scary if you think about it, because look at where else this is going. Do a search when you get a second for how many calories are in a Big Mac.
Right.
You used to get a list of websites that would give you varying answers. Now you get the knowledge graph that pops up with that information. And that's happening more and more where Google is attempting to satisfy the user from the search engine results page rather than from the websites. And that's happening in local search. They're experimenting with paid local search in San Francisco. They've got a concierge test going on that says, hey, I'm going to do plumber and my zip code. And you got a little box from Google that comes up and it says, hey, we'll help you find the right plumber. Fill out this form. So now they've got a person at Google that's going to help you find the right plumber.
Wow. That's dangerous. That could be scary. But you know that when I'm talking, let's say I'm buying that 60-inch screen TV, but what if I want to know more information about it? You know, I don't want to go straight to checkout. I want to know, okay, tell me more about it. You know,
right.
Does it give you that landing page for that product, or does it, and then go to the checkout, or I don't know how it's going to work.
I think what's going to do is I think that they're going to be able to, because they own the world's largest mine of online data. They're going to be able to say when someone uses this query, they're 85% at a purchase intent. And that's when they're going to offer that functionality.
Wouldn't that be huge? God.
Right? But when somebody else has used another query like reviews of 60-inch TV or differences, then they're not going to offer that purchase button. You'll still see the same shopping campaign ads, but it may not have the buy button.
Yeah. To me, that's scary because then how do you optimize a funnel if your funnel's being skipped completely?
If you don't own the funnel.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's I can't even fathom that because you can't optimize that. I mean, maybe you can, okay, let's try this image. Let's try this image,
But then what if they flip that around now? What if they start offering that on a CPA basis?
Right.
Rather than a cost per click basis, which I think is almost a gotta. Maybe. I'd like to think that, all things are good about Google. And if they flipped it around to a CPA basis, I think we'd be a little bit more comfortable with it.
You'd be more likely to hit that 15, threshold that you need to.
Yeah.
God, it's crazy just to think about that.
Yeah. You have to think what's going to happen in just a year or so away.
Yeah.
And they've said, by the way, they're also going to have video ads in search results. And they're expecting that in 2016. Think of the effect of that.
That could be huge. I do a lot of stuff with video, and that could be huge.
Yeah. I think video is really powerful in retargeting, by the way,
especially
on the B2B side. So let's say you are looking for an accounting firm and you did some research, and then you're running around the internet and you see a small ad with a 15-second clip of the CEO of the accounting firm website, and he gives a 15-second appeal as to why he should be your accounting firm.
Yeah.
That can be pretty persuasive. Cut through all the crap, cut through all the clutter of that, and just talk to me eye to eye about why I should be your accounting firm.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we all want to buy from people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're all wrapped up in technology, but when the smoke clears, most websites, and perhaps your feeling is the same, the About Us page is typically one of the top 3, top 4 most viewed pages.
Right.
Because they want to see who it is behind the company.
Who we're working with.
Yeah. We all want to buy from people.
Yeah. Yeah, but that opens up a lot of, because when you get to a point where you're like the example I was using with the big screen TV, you're going to stick with the big brands. You're not going to go with those. You don't know much about that site. They might have the best price, but I've never heard of, widgets.com. Maybe I should buy from Walmart or Best Buy. That's going to hurt the little guys, I think.
But what if they know that you have a history of buying from non-branded websites?
True. Yeah.
Which they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I guess you could look at it both ways.
Yeah. Think of how the search engine results page, they're personalized now.
Right.
Think of how personalized they're going to be not that long from now. I mean, you may have just pure different functionality on your search engine results page than I do for the same query. That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
That's crazy.
Yeah. But that's crazy too, though, because, if you got the 4 ads at the top, now if they're going to start throwing videos in there, you're talking a spot and a half that's going to take up. And there's going to be all paid on the first page.
Right. Yeah. Organic's going to be pushed off.
Right. I mean, the allure of being number one in Google, in organic, is fading and going to fade faster on that. But if you're CEO of Google and you've got a board saying, hey, you got to increase profits, hard to believe that someone could say that to them. But part of you would say, boy, we're giving away a lot of free stuff on that search engine results page. But they are balancing trust versus dollars. And I do think that when you look at behind what they're doing, I think they totally understand that their relationship with you is very fragile. Because if you did 4 searches on Google and you got back stuff that was completely irrelevant to what you wanted, it wouldn't take long for you to go, where's that Bing thing again?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You have a very fragile relationship with them, and I think they totally understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a thin line, and it's the trust factor. And, if they break that trust, the thing is there's multiple resources out there that you can go to if they're not going to give you what you want.
Yeah, I had a really fascinating answer in a class a couple weeks ago. We were talking about that trust factor and, that you expect something back when you do a search. And this young woman looked at me and she goes, if it doesn't come back on a Google search, I don't think it exists. And I was like, whoa. Her whole definition of reality was defined by Google search, right?
Yeah.
If it didn't come back on a Google search engine results page, it does not exist.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, there's the term, well, Google it. If somebody asks you a question, Google it. They're not saying Bing it or Yahoo it or anything like that. It's Google it. And so a lot of people have that perception. They're the monopoly. We go to them. We trust them. We have it there. If they can't provide it, who can?
I think we hopefully will teach the younger people to look beyond that.
Yeah.
Because then you're flashing back to when people thought the world was flat because they couldn't see the end of it. Is this the modern day equivalent of that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're listening to Search Talk Live. Those of you listening in, we are talking with Matt Weber of RoaR here in Orlando. And you can call into the show at 855-722-0006. We are powered by or sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can visit robertpalmercompanies.com. Or if you want to learn more about the show, you can go to searchtalklive.com or hit us up on Twitter at searchtalklive. And Matt, so that's so much. We had John Mueller on here from Google about a month ago, and I had mentioned to him, I said, he doesn't have anything to do with paid stuff, but I had mentioned to him, I said, okay, now we've got 4 ads at the top, and then you have your local results that show up, pushing your organic stuff even further down. I suggested to him, I said, why don't we do infinite scroll? And then his comment was, that'd be awesome for SEOs because everybody would be on the first page.
Right, yeah.
Hey, I got you to first page. So did my job.
And that was pretty funny. But he also said, I said, well, maybe if, you extend the search results to maybe 20 or 15 or something like that instead of 11 or 10 of them, which it ain't 10 anymore. But if you have local search results there too. But yeah, that was a suggestion, I think, because it sounds like they're pushing SEO.
Yeah. It now add to what you said, which is a great observation, by the way. Add extensions, structured snippets, call out extensions. And the next time you do a search for either your client or if anybody's listening for the show, run your finger down the page and count how many click opportunities, not just ads and elements, right? How many opportunities are there for clicks? Run your finger down that until you get to the first organic listing. And it's not uncommon for the first organic listing to be like the 18th, 17th possible click on that page.
Yeah.
And then think about what that is on a mobile display.
Yep.
Because now that's even compressed width-wise and it's even longer. I always tell people you would never lose money overestimating how lazy people are on the internet. And now you're asking somebody to scroll all the way down.
It's too much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much. And that's why, at the beginning of the show, we talked about if you're going to use AdWords for nothing else, use it for a laboratory.
Yeah.
Use it to figure out what works and drive your organic strategy from your AdWords results.
I preach that all the time because, that's your test. You see you're converting 5-10% on a keyword. Hey, there's a good phrase for you.
Exactly.
So it's a no-brainer. So when I brought that up to him, it just makes sense, because if you're starting to push everything, what if you got Google Shopping, the text ads, and then you got local search? Now there's nothing left.
I think where they're going to go is I think they're going to give you the option of filtering the search engine results, because right now they're already doing that for you behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
And I think that those search tools that are at the top that most people don't know about, I think they're going to make them more prominent.
Yeah.
So do you want to see the results displayed by chronological? Do you want to see the results displayed by your personal history?
Yeah.
Or do you want to see the results displayed by popularity? Mm-hmm. I think they're going to give us in the future more control over what we see on that search engine results page.
Yeah. Make it a little more personable.
Yeah. Personable's nice, but, sometimes maybe it's just because I'm an SEO too, but I'd like to get clear organic search. Put it in incognito. Don't tell me what you think I might like, but I want to see something new.
So what if they took the tabbed principle that they did in Gmail, and what if they apply that to search engine results pages?
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
That'd be very interesting to see, especially the user interaction, what they want. Are they going to go more to the organic side, and look at those results? Are they going to stay in the paid and providing what Google thinks they want you to look at? It'd be very interesting to see the user interaction with that.
Yeah,
because if it gets to a point and everything's automated with the algorithms now, and until Penguin comes out, then everything will be automated. But which should be my bet is it's going to be next Friday, but because they said first quarter, so it's got to be next.
Running
Friday.
out of time.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, it's like if Google and their machine learning is sitting there telling you what they think you want to see, what are you really missing? You know what I'm saying?
Except if your profile is diluted, like in the situation of the two of you, where you're doing lots of stuff that has really nothing to do with your core interest.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And how much of other people's search activity is tangential to what their real interests are? Husband and wives.
Right.
Hey, honey, could you go to the computer and could you look up blah, blah, blah? Well, it's not my interest, right? It's doing it for my wife. And that's all becoming factored into what I see. And that just continues to compound.
Yeah.
Good example is I watch a lot of YouTube videos, but my son watches the same account, and he likes video games. So he sits there and watches that. So when I get my results, Google thinks, hey, I want to see video games. No.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it seems like they're going to have to put back that little bit of control given us back so that we can select what we want a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. You guys can call in. The number's 855-722-0006. You're listening to Search Talk Live. We talk about everything digital. In the studio with us today is Matt Weber of RoaR. Matt, if they want to hit you up on Twitter or anything, how can they reach you?
It's at Best Web Design FL.
Okay. And then in your website?
Is RoarOnTheWeb.com.
Okay, nice.
Very cool. Check it out.
So let's see. What do you want to cover now, Matt?
We do have a user question. Okay. Is there any benefit to not limiting your ads to simply sales focus? Can you go a little broader than that with your ads? Is there any benefit to that?
There really is. And so now what we're learning is that the old model we had in our heads, that somebody would see an AdWords ad, click on it, go to our landing page, and do the thing that we want them to do, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we think of when we think of AdWords. Now we're finding out that people search in waves or they search in funnels. So let me just say, let's say the two of you go home tonight and you find out you got to replace your refrigerator. It's dead. Maybe you have a side-by-side refrigerator house. You're probably going to go to Google and go side-by-side refrigerators. And then you're looking at it and you go, oh, man, this General Electric 2313, that looks pretty cool. And then you Google General Electric 2313. And then you Google reviews of General Electric. Yeah. And then you go, yeah, that's the one I want. And then you go appliance stores that carry General Electric. You see, if we weren't discovered at the top level of that funnel on that, we might not have been the appliance store at the bottom of that funnel. So now we have to understand there's queries out there that contribute to our conversion, but aren't the actual conversion themselves.
Right.
So the whole idea of attribution modeling, I think if by the way, if you're giving anybody advice on what career they should choose in the future, attribution modeling. Understanding what media, offline and online, really contributed to the end action of that. Because you've got to understand it was that query way up here, which is going to possibly show up as a click-assisted conversion in your AdWords. But it's not. If you're only focused on conversions, you're going to miss that.
Yeah.
So for the caller's question, now you have to broaden your thinking out a little bit and understand what are the queries that are involved in that funnel, and you need exposure for that.
Yeah, so you really need to know your demographic as well.
Right.
You have to. I mean, if you might think you know it, but verify it because you may be totally wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and reverse engineer it through your Google Analytics.
Yeah.
So make sure your Google Analytics is completely installed. How many analytics accounts do you guys see that are not fully installed? Hey, they're tracking visitors and they're tracking location, but not tracking conversions. The demographic settings aren't hooked up. The Google Search Console is not hooked up. So when I And how do you explain that to somebody? And they go, well, I've got my Google Analytics. It gets emailed to me. Here's the report, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's 3/5 of it, but there's more of it. So step one is making sure that every part of the Google Analytics functionality is completely hooked up and turned on so that you can get the insights that Robert talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise you're shooting in the dark, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
Let's see. What else? What do you want to cover, Matt?
Well, one of the things we talked about was what's the most common mistakes that people make in AdWords.
Yeah.
And the starting point for me is you got to get that account structure correct. If you don't have the basic building blocks of what's a campaign, what's an ad group, what's a keyword, everything you try to do from that point on gets a lot harder.
Right.
And how many times do you open up somebody's AdWords account and they've got one campaign and they've called it Campaign 1, and they've got one ad group and they've called it Ad Group 1. And then that ad group is stuffed with hundreds of keywords.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm spending $10,000 a month.
There's no advanced technique in AdWords that's going to bail you out of that and help you with that. You got to turn that off and rebuild that structure and get those ad groups to be really tightly knit in terms of their theme and their consistency.
Right.
And that gets back to that, thinking about how long and specific people search now, and you've got to have an AdWord group that lines up with each and every one of those.
Right.
And I always tell people, I think about ice cream, only because I love ice cream, and somebody types in chocolate chip mint ice cream, and you're bidding on the term ice cream, right? There's going to be a match. If you're using that as a broad match, your ad's going to show up. But your ad can only say the word ice cream in it, because it's also showing up for hundreds of other flavors. And the page you're landing them on is just about ice cream.
Right.
But what the searcher wanted is they wanted chocolate chip mint ice cream, which means you need to have an ad group that had just the keywords related to chocolate chip mint ice cream.
Right.
And your ad needed to say, we have chocolate chip mint ice cream, and that landing page has to be chocolate chip ice cream. You go through that with people, and they go, do I really have to create all those ads in all those ad groups? Yes, you do. So people get that structure wrong.
Yeah.
There is a huge advantage to that. You may be paying half of what your competitor is paying. If you have everything lined up like that, your quality score goes up, and that brings your cost per click down.
Yeah.
Right. Quality score is such a huge factor because on the calculation for ad rank, it's a multiplier, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to take your maximum cost per click and you multiply it times your quality score. Well, take your bid and multiply it times 10 versus somebody else who's taking their bid and multiplying it times 3.
Right.
So it's a huge issue. Then when it goes into calculating the actual click to what you pay, you're taking the ad rank that you have to beat and you're dividing it by your quality score. So if I have to beat a 14 ad rank and I'm dividing it by 10 as opposed to dividing it by 3, I'm coming up with a smaller number. And when you go through that math, the first thing you understand is that the auction is not based strictly on bid. Right? Everybody thinks it's the guy with the most money at the top. It's not that way at all. But quality score helps you in two ways. It magnifies the calculation for ad rank, but it also makes your cost per click smaller because you're dividing the ad rank that you have to beat by your quality score. So you're dividing it by a bigger number.
Okay. Right. Gotcha. Now, I mean, being kind of an expert in AdWords and Google, and when I said you probably see a lot of people who have no idea what they're doing. For those people that want to learn, what's kind of a trusted resource that you have or you've learned from to kind of provide the base knowledge of AdWords and how to get started and really understand the fundamentals of what's going on?
The AdWords YouTube channel, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah.
They do AdWords in under 5 minutes. They do a really nice job of breaking down every topic into 5-minute and less chunks, as opposed to you go to other videos and you're like, do I really want to watch 27 minutes on AdWords? And let's face it, there's a lot to know in AdWords. And if you try to bite it all off at one time, it's just not going to work. So I love the AdWords YouTube channel. Make sure you find the one that's put out by AdWords because there's an awful lot of lookalikes out there.
Yeah. You can also go to the AdWords University. They've got step-by-step everything, even a lot of things you don't even use.
Right, yeah.
And you can take the test for free. So if you want to be certified, you can do that. Or you can have Matt come to your company and train you.
Yeah, and I got to do a plug for one of the companies that I work for, Cardinal Path Training.
Yep.
And you can find their classes at training.cardinalpath.com. And they're one of the few companies left that still do instructor-led training.
Okay.
And so some people still learn best by
Absolutely.
having somebody at the front of the room and going for it. And not too many people do instructor-led group training on AdWords. Cardinal Path does, and it's at training.cardinalpath.com. And they do classes all over the country.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm either like last time we were together. I was speaking at the marketing thing downtown, and I wanted to sit down on your analytics.
Yeah,
I know
me too.
analytics, but I'm not 100% on it.
Yeah.
And I would love to, one time sit in one of your classes.
And I had felt the same way. I couldn't sit on yours because I was teaching, and you had the bigger crowd.
That sucks. But anyway, let's see what.
I should have done better door prizes.
Oh yeah, real quick.
Always help.
Real quick before I forget. My son is listening to the show because he's out for spring break, and I wanted to give him a shout out. Happy birthday, or not happy birthday.
Hey, it's his birthday.
Thanks for listening to the show, Bobby.
Yeah. On spring break, always got to be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a good kid if he's spending his spring break listening to the show.
Listening to the show, right? Yeah.
He's gonna be my predecessor.
There you go. Very cool.
Let's see. What do we got? 4 minutes left.
Yeah, we got about 4 minutes. Matt, do you have anything coming up? I know you travel a lot. You speak a lot. Do you have any conferences or any speaking engagements coming up?
My next 2 trips, I'm going to be speaking at the National Association of Livery Coach Dealers, and those are people who do limousine
Oh,
rentals
nice.
Wow.
in New Orleans, and that's in the first week of May. And then I do an AdWords class in Houston, which is in the first week of August, and then I have an AdWords class coming up in Tampa in September.
Oh, very
Maybe
cool.
we can make the Tampa one.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I got so much to learn. Like you said, there's so much that goes into it, and yeah, I mean, you can never stop learning about it. So I definitely need to kind of get my elbows deep and get a little dirty with it and learn a lot. I've learned a lot with this show. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Yeah,
I know our listeners have learned a lot. I've learned a lot. So it's been very awesome. We appreciate it.
I've known Matt and his wife for about, a couple years?
Yeah.
Yeah. His wife is in the industry as well, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Because, me in the dating world, you talk about digital marketing and their eyes glaze over and they're kind of like, what are you talking about? You know? So that's pretty awesome to have that support as well.
We love it. And Pam has a real deep expertise in local search.
Yeah.
Which is, as you guys know, its own separate animal.
Absolutely.
And that's evolving too,
Yeah.
with some recent big changes in the local search sphere.
Yeah.
And I think that they've got to learn Google. They're going to learn how to monetize that product eventually.
Yep.
And we're seeing some betas on that. But so Pam's a really deep local search expert
That's awesome.
on that.
Yeah, I would love to give a shout out to my wife, but she does not listen to the show. So, Ashley, if you're listening, I love you, baby, but I know you're not, so it's all good.
Yeah, so I think we're going to end the show soon. Tune in next week. We've got Michael Strecker,
Yes.
formerly of SEM Rush. Don't have all his information,
Yeah,
so I
we'll be
can't give you
talking
his
SEO.
new. But I
Matt,
think-
we really appreciate you coming
Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah, I love being here. I really like the pool table and the waterfall and the coffee bar you guys
Don't
have
give it
here.
all away. Don't give it all
This
away.
is a great setup. I'm very
We
impressed.
appreciate it.
Matt, are you? I'd like to have you come on again. I mean, not to put you on the spot here, but maybe
Yeah,
sometime
absolutely.
have you come on because we'll be on iHeart either next Tuesday or the following.
Following Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah, we'll be on iHeartRadio nationally
Yes.
to give you some exposure and we can teach some people some great things.
I love it. I mean, since I've just given the barista my favorite drink, she can remember that to the next time I come back.
We'll
Is that-
make sure
is
we
that
write it
cool?
all down for
Okay.
sure.
All right.
And maybe have Pam on too. I actually said she
absolutely.
would do it. 'Cause,
She'd be great for local search.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
definitely. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your support. Catch us on Sprecher or searchtalklive.com. Again, like we said, we'll be on iHeartRadio soon. We're also on SoundCloud. Thanks again. See you next week.
See you
Bye,
next week.
everybody.
Search Talk Live is a presentation of the Robert Palmer family of companies.